for Tamil Thai Valthu.
நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்தை கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் வதனமென திகழ் பரத கண்டமிதில் தெக்கனமும் அது சிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிறை நுதலும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிலமை திறம்பியல்து செயல் மறந்து வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே.
A warm welcome sets the tone for every meaningful beginning. It's our honor to invite our Vice Principal, Dr. P. Padmavati Ma'am, to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning. We are truly excited to host this expert session, which promises to be both inspiring and insightful. It's an honor for us to welcome Mr. Sundharesha Subramanian, a renowned investigative journalist and the author of the well-known book, The Dirty Dozen. Through his work, he has helped young minds understand the real-world challenges of financial crimes or fugitive economic offenders. Through his work, he has brought to light the realities of economic offenses, ethical challenges, and the serious impact such crimes have on society and the economy. For our students, this session offers a valuable opportunity to learn beyond academics, understanding real-world cases, the importance of ethics, accountability, and the role of young professionals can play in building a transparent and responsible system. Mr. Subramanian's experiences and perspectives will surely help us to connect classroom concepts with practical realities. A warm welcome to all the students from our trust institutions. My heartiest welcome goes to Dr. K. Chitra, Principal, who is here to preside over this session, and all my faculty colleagues and student friends. Let us all actively participate and make the most out of this enriching learning experience. Thank you and have an insightful session ahead.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm and encouraging words of welcome.
At the heart of every meaningful academic gathering is the guidance of visionary leadership. Our principal, Dr. K. Chitra, has always been a source of inspiration, guiding us with clarity and purpose. We are honored to invite our principal, Dr. K. Chitra, to introduce today's chief guest.
Happy morning. Such a pleasure to be amidst you all today. I would like to join the Vice Principal in welcoming the chief guest for the day, Sundharesha Subramanian. Sir, it's such a pleasure to be having you as a guest today, and it's an honor for our institution. At this juncture, I would like to thank our advisor, Rear Admiral Rikshit Seva Medalist, Deepak Bansal sir, for connecting us to the chief guest. Though he is not able to be with us today, he sends his wishes. At this juncture, I would also like to thank the Managing Trustee, Mr. Sundar Ramakrishnan, I would say Dr. Sundar Ramakrishnan, for enabling us to have this event meticulously organized for the benefit of all sister concerns. So I am truly excited to see the men students here. I am sure my girls would also be excited because it's always a women's institution, and we are happy to welcome the students from across the institutions of our engineering and the arts and science and Ramakrishna Institute of Technology, Engineering College and Ramakrishna College of Arts and Science too. Because this event is of such magnitude that we didn't want to be very selfish and have it with only ourselves. Mr. Sundharesha's book on Dirty Dozen, very interesting title. I'm sure that some of you would be interacting with him on the title also. I was thinking it was based on the American movie, The Dirty Scoundrels, but he was very insightful in telling me, no, it was a book, it was a movie before that, The Dirty Dozen itself. So a lot of interactions can happen on the title itself, and this is a wonderful interactive session it is going to be. And I was also sharing him how this book was not very much available except from Amazon, and he was having interesting stories to tell about that also. Now, if we all talk something about the people who have achieved higher ladders in the society because of their monetary benefits or whatever, we know that immediately a gag will be ordered on us, whether it's a YouTube person or whether it is somebody who's writing some article in blogging or even posting something in Twitter. Immediately some action will be taken against them, and something will happen to them in terms of taking the article away from that particular site. And in this era where freedom of speech is so much not really a freedom, he has got the willpower and the determination to come out with a book on titled 30 Dozen, which is writing about 12 important people who have done a greater role in the frauds and siphoning the money of the public. And for that, I think he requires a big round of applause. Right? Thank you for joining with me in giving him the applause. So recently his book has awarded the FICCI's Business Book of the Year award. Congratulations on that too, sir. So it's such a pleasure to know that and have you with us. Okay, in today's economic situation, corporates are building greater role in the economic policies, be it the economic policies, economics of the country, and the policies which are getting laid out, and everyday life of us also, the corporates are building greater role. Okay, so hence the question of ethical leadership, transparency, accountability is not anymore an event which is the fundamentals of the basic. It's not something which whether we should debate, whether we should ask it or not. It's the fundamentals and the basic that the corporates has to be ethical, they have to be transparent, and they have to be doing what is right in a transparent manner. So when Mr. Sundharesha has agreed to talk to you all, I was thinking what topic can I give him, and I was being a management person myself, I thought this title would be very much reflecting what he has written in the book, and he readily agreed. Thanks to you, sir, for agreeing for the title which is suggested. Okay, the recent corporate failures and the government failures and lapses across the world also reminds us that profitability, making profits without integrity is unsustainable, and growth without transparency is also not will earn the public trust. So against this backbone, today's session is gaining special relevance, and the Dirty Dozen is not merely a book on corporate misconduct. It is a sharp, well-researched examination of how systemic failures, weak oversight, and ethical compromises can lead to a large-scale consequences, not only for the corporates, but also for common public like you and me. Okay, so and the stakeholders at large in the society. The book challenges us to look beyond the isolated scandals and understand the deeper patterns where governance failed, where leadership faltered, and where accountability was deliberately diluted. So we are honored to have with us Mr. Sundharesha Subramanian, a distinguished author, an investigative journalist, and corporate commentator whose work combines investigative rigor with strong ethical lens. So I don't know how many of you read these two articles which came in Hindu on December 2nd and December 4th. Now if you are reading Hindu, it talks about the fugitive economic offenders, how 15 of them just ran out of the country and they owed large scale sum. Right, just 9 of them account for nearly 58,000 crores in principal and interest, and they are just sitting aramse somewhere out of the country. Right, you and I do some economic offense. The farmers, a lot of them committed, take their lives out because they had to just pay some small amount as in, they had to pay some small amount back. But what are these economic fugitives doing? They're having their life of their own, ferrying in the jet, right from Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, to all those people, various other people whom he has referenced in the books, apart from these 12 case studies. So as students and practitioners, as future citizens of our country, I am sure that these discussions and your insights, which you're going to learn from his book, will help us to question ourselves. How do we build institutions that are not just successful, but also principled, that are transparent and that are accountable? I am confident that today's interactions will provide insight through encouraging ethical reflection and equipping us with perspectives that extend well beyond textbooks and boardrooms. With this, I have a great pleasure in once again welcoming our chief guest, Mr. Sundharesha Subramanian. Thank you, sir, for agreeing to be with us, and I'm very sure that your insightful lecture will help us to learn a lot, which will be beyond the book which you have written. Thank you all.
Good morning, everyone. This presentation, you can. So, எல்லாம் நல்லா இருக்கீங்களா? So, Madam Principal has kindly allowed me to keep this bilingual. So, I'll try to switch between Tamil and English. Okay, I just. Okay. So, Madam was kind enough to introduce me with all the different roles I've done over the years. But fundamentally, I think of myself as a storyteller. So, I will try to tell you a few stories so that you can relate to. I will also like to hear some of your own stories, which will make this session interactive. So, to begin with, let me start with the story of the title itself, The Dirty Dozen. So, typically people tend to take it literally. Dirty dozen, dozen means 12 and dirty is something which is not clean. So, in the process, people miss out on the larger and the context with which this name was given. So, the name comes from a 1960s novel and a Hollywood movie which came the same theme. So, The Dirty Dozen, this people did not realize, and I got into trouble because people took it literally. One of the dozen people sued us in a Calcutta court, and the book got restrained from being circulated for about 6 months. This is one of the reasons where it is not being found in all the bookshops. But now we are slowly getting back. So to come back to the story, உங்களுக்கு கார்த்தி தெரியும்னு நினைக்கிறேன், அந்த ஆக்டர் கார்த்தி தெரியுமா? மௌனராம் கார்த்தி இப்போ ரொம்ப ட்ரெண்டிங்கில் இருக்காரு சோஷியல். பட் ஐம் நாட் டாக்கிங் அபவுட் மௌனராம் கார்த்தி, திஸ் இஸ் அபவுட் மெய்யழகன் கார்த்தி. ஸோ அவர் வந்து 5-6 இயர்ஸ், நீங்களாம் ஸ்கூலில் இருந்திருப்பீங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன், அப்போ வந்து கைதின்னு ஒரு படம் வந்தது. ஸோ திஸ் மூவி வாஸ் அபவுட் ஒரு ரொம்ப தூக்கு தண்டனை கைதி. அவர் வந்துட்டு he would be caught by the police, but the police themselves will get into trouble with some drug mafia அதெல்லாம். Then they come to this guy who is the only one who didn't get intoxicated or drugged, and he takes a lot of risks and he finally gets them out of trouble. It's almost a suicide mission. So இதே மாதிரி 12 கார்த்தி இருந்தா எப்படின்னு நினைச்சு பாருங்க. That is Dirty Dozen. So this Hollywood movie, it is about a 1944 la nadakra story idu, when Second World War was on. So the US Army picks 12 most dreaded criminals. Each one of them has done some robbery or murder and other heinous crimes, and many of them are in death row. Basically, they were about to be hanged, and some of them are in 30 years kind of imprisonment, 20 years hard labor. இந்த மாதிரி ரொம்ப ஸ்ட்ராங்கான பனிஷ்மெண்ட் கொடுத்து அவங்கள ஜெயிலில் போட்டிருப்பாங்க. That army decides we will pick these guys and train and send them to Germany where Nazis are ruling, and they would be given it is almost a suicide mission. So it is not, they are not sure that who will come out and whether they will be successful. But if they succeed, they will earn their freedom and they can escape from the hanging. So this was the deal which was struck, and the story talks about how they went about it and how they finally who survived and whether they succeeded in their mission. So this is the first story. So what was the suicide mission? What is the connection? Idukkum inda namma naatla ulla economic scenario ku enna sambandham? What is that economic suicide mission? That brings me to the second story. Second story enna and during the time 2008 Olympics, I think most of you would be in your kindergarten or probably born around that time, 2007-8. 2008 was a very eventful year in global financial scene, and 2008 was a year in which the Olympics were held in Beijing. So China constructed tremendously. They built so many stadiums, so much of facilities. So that created a boom in global economy during the years preceding 2008. But once that Olympic was done and dusted, then the demand completely collapsed. And it also coincided with the global financial crisis, which played out in US and Wall Street, where a lot of excesses got punished, and big Wall Street firms like Lehman collapsed, and which triggering a global contagion. எல்லா ஊர்லயும் வந்துட்டு ரொம்ப economic crisis ஆச்சு. People lost jobs, lost thousands of crores of funds, and this led to governments around the world being very loose with incentives, though they gave a lot of incentives to the businesses and financial sector firms so that they could come out of this crisis. So if you look at the years after this 2008 crisis, till about 2012-13, very loose financial environment was there. People were given interest subventions, and people could practically borrow at very low rates, and they could keep their businesses afloat. And when this process was over, 5 years after the global financial crisis, and people started withdrawing these incentives, businesses started beginning to feel the pinch. So they couldn't pay their interest, they couldn't pay back their loans, and a twin balance sheet syndrome, twin balance sheet problem was seen in the economy. So on one hand, balance sheet now, the balance sheet shows the financial position of any company. So if the assets are more than the liabilities, then you are in a comfortable position. Your equity is good, and you can face your future financial obligations, and you can also, you are in a good position to grow. But here we have a situation where balance sheet of both banks and the companies, both were in trouble. This was a twin balance sheet problem. Companies were not able to pay the banks the interest, and because of it, banks' balance sheet was also deteriorating. And this was getting to a stage where this was threatening to derail the whole economy. That is when this dirty dozen comes in. So this dirty dozen like Karthi, like these 12 convicts who got used. These 12 large companies, these were defaulters. RBI picked these 12 companies and they decided that these companies will be put to sell, and it was done through this new law called Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. This before this law came in, there was not a proper framework for a company to end. In every being there should be a life cycle. There is a birth, there is a life, and then there is an end. For a company to end in India, the death of the company, there was not a proper framework. There was old laws like Sikh Industrial Companies Act, but it was repealed in 2002, and till about 2016 there was no fresh law or framework that was in place. Only in 2016 this new law was put into place, but even after the law came into force and entire regulations and everything came into being, people were hesitating to take companies to the insolvency framework. So what insolvency framework, though there is a negative connotation, but the underlying principle of this framework is that to release productive assets back into the economy. So what was happening earlier was the shareholders who owned the company, even though they have defaulted, there was no provision to remove them or change them, to get better persons into that company and revive it. But once the IBC came into play, this provision was there, but still the lenders, banks, we were supposed to use it, were not using. Then RBI stepped in and they said that these 12 companies are the biggest borrowers, and these companies needed to be put through this insolvency regime, and that is how this whole dirty dozen came into being. So my own journey with writing this book started with this willful defaulters list put out by the Punjab National Bank. Punjab National Bank is the second largest public sector bank in the country, and one of their main borrowers was Vijay Mallya. Though Vijay Mallya and some of the larger names were known publicly, the list had around 200-300 names, and business journalists like me, for us this was a good source to begin with, because when you want to do evidence-based reports and not hearsay and not something which cannot be defended, it is difficult to do stories which can stand the test of courts and any challenges. So for people like us, this was a godsend, this list. So this list had names of borrowers who are willfully defaulted. There is a default due to business reasons, and there is a willful default. Willful default, even though you have the ability to repay the debt, you don't repay. That is when the bank declares you a willful defaulter. So these names I was working with a newspaper called Business Standard at the time. This was around 2015-16. So this list gave us a good starting point. So we went to these small companies who had borrowed 200 crores, 300 crores, tried to see who these owners were, what they did with the money and all that. So then one shocking thing I found, I mentioned in Apple of Shadara. Shadara is a very slum area in Delhi, in northeastern Delhi. So அங்கே வந்துட்டு ஆப்பிள் இண்டஸ்ட்ரின்னு ஒரு பெரிய குரூப் 10-15 கம்பெனி இருந்தது. ஸோ தே ஆல் ஹேட் தேர் அட்ரஸ் இன் ஷாதரா. ஷாதராவில் வந்துட்டு நான் அங்கே போய் பார்த்தா ஒரு ரிக்ஷா எடுத்துகிட்டு ஒரு சின்ன சந்துக்குள்ளே போய் அங்கே அந்த அட்ரஸ் இருந்தது. அங்கே பார்த்தா 17 கம்பெனி போர்டு இருந்தது. பட் தேர் வாஸ் ஸ்மால் என்ன சொல்கிறது, ஒரு தகர ஷெட்டு மாதிரி. அதில் வந்து மேலே இந்த மாதிரி ஒரு டேபிள் கூட போட முடியாது. அந்த இடத்துல ஒரு ஆள் உட்காந்துட்டு இருந்தார் ட்ரௌசர் போட்டுட்டு. ஸோ என்ன எங்கே ஆப்பிள் இண்டஸ்ட்ரினா இதுதான் ஆப்பிள் இண்டஸ்ட்ரி அப்படின்றாரு. So 400 crores banks, top banks have given to such a company. அது என்ன முதல்ல பெரிய கம்பெனியாக இருந்து அப்புறம் இங்கே வந்துட்டு ட்ரான்ஸ்ஃபர் பண்ணி ஏமாற்றிட்டு போயிட்டாங்களா, இல்லை இதே கம்பெனி முதல்ல என்ன இப்படி தான் இருந்ததுன்னு இன்னும் இன்வெஸ்டிகேட்டர்ஸ் ஆர் ஸ்டில் ஒர்க்கிங் ஆன் இட். பட் திஸ் வாஸ் அ கைண்ட் ஆஃப் அ லைட் பல்ப் மூமெண்ட் ஃபார் மீ தட் இந்த வந்து பேட் டெட் ப்ராப்ளம் வந்துட்டு இட் இஸ் ஆல்சோ ப்ராப்ளம் ஆஃப் some kind of collusion. Unless there is support from inside the system where people were supposed to do the checks and balances. நீங்க ஒரு loan வாங்க போனீங்கன்னா they will ask you for hundreds of documents, they will ask you for a collateral, they will ask you for so many agreements, even for a 10 lakh loan or a 5 lakh loan. But then how was 400 crores advanced to such a shell entity which did not have any kind of assets, it did not have proper directors? So this was the question that led me to investigate this whole issue and thought of writing a larger picture story of this whole what is at that time 10 lakh crore problem, that NPAs in the system had rise to 10 lakh crore, which is almost like 9 to 10% of the total advances which is given to the system. So the book, I will get into the book now. It is largely in 3 parts. Basically, first part is about what led to this whole bad debt scenario, where so much of money got stuck in these errant borrowers and non-performing assets, people who are not able to repay. So main catalyst was, so most of the problems, if you have to understand the problem, you have to problems of the downturn, you have to go to the boom cycle. The businesses normally go in the boom and bust cycle. So typically when there is a boom, everybody is bullish, everybody is positive. They try to overdo things, they try to overborrow and expand into areas where they don't have expertise, because debt and capital is freely available. So like I told you, the time between 2004 when the new UPA government led by Manmohan Singh came, and around about 2008-9 when the collapse happened, those 4-5 years were really boom years. So initially, like when the previous government, BJP government was there, they pushed infrastructure projects like road projects. So if you might have seen all these 4-lane, 6-lane expressways we have, it was started under Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government, and they built this golden quadrilateral which connected 4 metros, and they also built this north, south and east-west corridors. These are projects which take a lot of capital, thousands of crores of capital is required, and we didn't have institutions which could fund these kind of long term, and because the returns on these projects to build them itself will take 10-15 years, and the returns will come in form of tolls and other charges, taxes, and it will take another 20-30 years. So for a financial institution to fund these kind of projects, they should also have that kind of funding sources which are long term. But in India we didn't have, so public sector banks were pushed into funding these projects. So land, some coal was another like source which was seen as a source of capital for the government. So coal was offered to business people who are putting up these large projects as an incentive. So then coal, and third one was spectrum. You might see the connection in all 3. There was a lot of corruption. So land, everywhere where land was given, there was valuation involved. So there was undervaluation, there was overvaluation. There are places where land was given for almost free. And coal and spectrum, each of them became a huge multi-crore scams where the Comptroller and Auditor General of India raised, I think in spectrum, the famous sum was 1.75 lakh crore, which became even a local election issue, and it led to the change in government. And similarly, coal was also a big scam at the time, and it was Supreme Court which struck down all these allocations, leading to lot of, so banks, what banks had done, they had lent to these projects, lot of power projects, steel projects, which had been put up around the country near these coal blocks, near these energy sources. Coal is one of the main sources of energy in our country. So every large, for example, cement takes a lot of power, so they need a coal plant. Cement companies, to build cement plants and to operate cement plants, you need a lot of energy. It comes from coal. So each cement company would have a coal allocation. Steel companies, steel production involves a lot of energy. They also need captive coal plants. So all these people who had got allocations and who had started projects borrowing from banks were in trouble when this whole allocations were cancelled. So all these debts, all these loans went into that NPA category. A large amount of these loans also went into NPA category. This is one of the reasons that triggered the whole crisis. Second thing I've talked about in this book is the dichotomy between companies and the promoters. So I was telling ma'am how this whole Solomon and Solomon case, famous case which people studying business and commerce would have known. So that brought about the concept of separate legal entity. So your liability of any promoter, any company founder is limited to the amount of shares he has bought. So beyond that, if there is any liability, it has to end with the company. This is the principle on which the whole business ecosystem works. So it has its utilities, it has its advantages. It allows people to take risks and build businesses and create value. But it also has its pitfalls when people misuse it. So this is what has happened in large scale. People, because they have this immunity of limited liability, people took these loans and they used various methods like launching hundreds of shell companies and diverting loans for the purposes for which it was not borrowed, and take it abroad, take it to tax havens. So this led to them, like for example, recently there was a expose by one of the sting operations, the company famous for sting operation, Cobra Pros. So they talked about a company where the promoter has defaulted thousands of crores, but he was gifting his wife a luxury yacht in somewhere in Mediterranean. So on one hand you are telling the bankers that I don't have enough to pay you back your loan. On the other hand, you are engaging in this kind of ostentatious behavior. One of the poster boys of that was Vijay Mallya, who made his lifestyle itself as his own brand, and he was throwing huge. So one of the triggers for RBI and regulators to come down heavily on these people was a big birthday party, 60th birthday of Vijay Mallya, where he had called all global Hollywood stars and Enrique Iglesias and Anna Kournikova and all, and he was holding a party in Goa. while his company Kingfisher Airlines was defaulting on a debt of 8,000 crores. So this is not an isolated. Malaya was the most famous case, but he was not the only one who was doing it. Other people were doing it at their own levels, at smaller range, from 50 crore to 100 crore to all kinds of stories were there. And why this is happening was, like I told you, this is not possible without help from inside or active collusion from inside. That is what is dealt with in the next chapter around corruption and politics. So we talk about few, not in any middle level, even the chairman and managing director level. There were cases where people were caught red-handed, where they were caught benefiting promoters, trying to siphon off money. You borrow and you give them, take a kickback and give them leeway which they were not supposed to have, and allow them to take the loan funds. And this is all, like most of them happened in the public sector banks, which are funded by money of you and me, your hard-earned money of taxpayers, going to the capital of public sector banks, which then are lent to these borrowers. So there was a huge issue of accountability. And in this public sector bank, there is a problem with the governance system also, because these banks are managed under a 50-year-old law. So some of you might remember, you might have in your textbooks also, how in 1969 Indira Gandhi nationalized banks. So before 69 there were a lot of private banks. Most of these Canara Bank, Indian Bank and all these public sector banks you see today, they were all private, and the government took them over under this act. So this act had a governance structure which is not a very modern structure. Today, under SEBI laws, all listed companies are supposed to have 50% independent directors, and if the chairman is an independent director, then at least 1/3 of the board of directors have to be independent director. But in these public sector banks, this is not the case. They have a very old system, and this system also is not operated in its full spirit. For example, the bank boards are supposed to have employee directors, which are usually from the employee of each of these banks. But almost always these employee director positions are not filled, and there are no independent directors also because of this structure, and that leaves kind of a lopsided and too much power in the hands of the CMD, and that allows corruption and inefficiency. The other issue is that a typical public sector banker earns only a fraction of what a private banker gets. So there is also that factor which comes into play, because these people are also moving around with promoters who are throwing these big parties, and who are wearing flashy clothes and having big cars and moving around. So this also creates some kind of greed among these bankers to match up with people. Oh, these people borrow from me, they come and lie at my feet, and they are living like this, and I am living like a ordinary government employee. So that psychology also plays out, and creating a deadly cocktail where this larger public interest gets compromised. So this is the scenario into which these dirty dozen companies came in. So there was a lot of resistance. So first of all, the bankers were reluctant because of all these factors, because these are people who have helped you in many ways, though not above board. So they were not ready to take them into insolvency and make them lose their companies. And also there was a lot of resistance from the companies themselves because they thought of those companies as their ancestral property, something they want to give it to their children and their grandchildren. But here this new law has come and it is threatening to take my company away from me. So lot of resistance was there, lot of legal problems were put up, challenges were made, but these companies eventually were put through. These are the names of these companies. IBG Shipyard, Alok Industries, Amtech, Bhushan Steel and Power, Electro Steel. Electro Steel is the guy who sued me for 50 crore. So, Kejriwal family. So these 12 companies, sorry. So if you look at the names of these companies, at least 5 of them are from the steel sector. So steel sector, like I told you, was went into a down cycle. So one of the saving grace in this company were at least all of them had put up a functioning steel plant. So in most of these companies, the recovery was good. Actually, in SR Steel, the recovery, Mittal, Lakshmi Mittal, who is a global steel account tycoon, he came and bought SR Steel. So they paid around 81% of the claims. In others, there were between 50 and 60% recovery was made. Bhushan Steel went to Tata's. Bhushan Steel and Power went to JSW. Electro Steel was bought over by Vedanta, and Monath Ispat also went to JSW. So these companies are now doing well, and Bhushan Steel and Power was recently in trouble with the Supreme Court, but they have managed. So 70% of this exposure was total amount in these 12 companies was 3.5 lakh crore, which was the claims of the financial creditors. Means that is the amount they had borrowed and interest which went into outstanding defaults. So then we talk about each of these companies. SR Steel is S and R. So S stands for Shashi Ruya, R stands for Ravi Ruya. That is how SR Steel. And they are into multiple businesses. They were in oil also. They have and they are a national company with a lot of units around the country. And they were also like restructuring multiple times. They were known for having restructured their loans. Restructure means basically you are getting fresh loans to pay back the old loans. That is restructuring is the euphemism for that. Like banks were throwing good money after bad because they didn't have a way out. So SR Steel restructured 17 times. Finally, they had to come to IBC. They put up a lot of fight. So they wanted to buy back the company at a much lower price. Then the government said put its foot down. So they brought a new provision in the law saying that you cannot, people who are related to the original promoters cannot come in to put bids for the company under IBC. So section 29A, there was a major amendment which was made, and finally it was sold to ArcelorMittal. Bhushan Steel was another large company. The Singhal brothers, Neeraj Singhal and Sanjay Singhal, they were brothers. So the entire Bhushan group was built by their father, Brij Bhushan Singhal, who was a contractor who used to sell rail pathirupinga sleeper la vandu append pandradhukku there will be a round kind of steel thing which bonds the rail with the sleeper, concrete sleeper. So they started their business like that, and they built a huge steel conglomerate. So some of these businesses also inspiring. So they came from very humble origins, and they built up these large businesses. That is why it was, from their viewpoint, it was difficult for them to let go. But in this case also there was a lot of fund diversions, and there was investigations which were now Neeraj Singhal himself got arrested, and the plant was eventually sold to Tatas, and after this Tatas have done well, and these companies have turned around, and they are now doing much better than where they were before. So this is one of the this redemption of these productive assets. Once such large companies are revived, so many jobs are saved. Otherwise, like if they were let to die and or in the hands of the same promoter, these jobs would be lost forever, and the production of so much economic value will be hindered. So this is one of the redemption qualities of IBC. Bhushan Power and Steel, this is like I said, this is the elder brother Sanjay Singhal. So he had this Bhushan Power and Steel, and here, like I said, there was this coal block allotment cancellation, which led to the troubles of the company. It was sold to JSW Group eventually. Electro Steel is a Calcutta-based company. They were into ductile pipes. So if you have seen in large cities, so there is this storm drains are there, and they used to make the cover for those storm drains. So that was the business they were originally involved. That business continued to do well, but they wanted to integrate backwards. So they wanted to become a steel plant. So they put up a huge plant in Jharkhand. So Jharkhand, and like this presentation mentions, it was a wrong time. They went into this backward integration at a wrong point of the steel cycle, when demand was, by the time when they started the project, the demand was good, but by the time the plant was about to be commissioned, the cycle had turned. And they also got into trouble with the Environment Ministry, because the plant location, though it was close to the coal and other resources, iron ore mines, it was in the middle of a forest land. And that led to, there was a minister called Jayanti Natarajan at that time in UPA, and she was known for this Jayanti tax, which was discussed in Parliament also. That so there was some CBI inquiry into it, and they got into trouble after that. The company was sold to Vedanta Group of Anil Agarwal. You must be knowing the Vedanta Group. They are famous for this Sterlite copper in Thoothukudi. They also got into trouble there. But this company, they are also now looking to sell it again. So they were also not able to run it as well as they would have wanted to. So it is again in the blocks. That is the news. Manath Ispat is a smaller of the steel companies. This was also bought over by JSW Sajjan Jindal Group. Like same problems, coal block cancellation and steel cycle led to the downturn. This is also sold to JSW. One little trivia here is Jajodia is the brother-in-law of Sajjan Jindal. So you saw in SR Steel's case, the owners were not allowed. Here somehow they were allowed. So that is how things happen even in reforms in India. So ala chollu, rula cholre. That is the problem. Lanco Infrotech, this is a famous pepper spray MP. Some of you would have seen parliament proceedings 10 years ago. So there was this pepper spray brought into the parliament, and this person was arrested and all that. So Lakadapati Rajagopal, so basically he is a politically connected family. They got into power infrastructure, and funds were diverted abroad, and main lender was Power Finance Corporation. This not much could be recovered from this. Nobody was ready to buy it. So this is gone into liquidation. About 40,000 crore almost kind of vanished. JP Infratech, this is an interesting case where this company had put up a lot of housing projects in Delhi NCR region. So they had built a huge expressway called Yamuna Expressway. So like I told you before, since our country doesn't have too much of capital, when you want to put up these large capital intensive infrastructure projects, the government used incentives like land. So you build the road, you will get to develop the land around the road to get your money back. So that will be a form of source of return for you. So likewise, JP Group built this Yamuna Expressway, which ran along the banks of Yamuna from Delhi to Agra. Agra, where Taj Mahal is there. Initially they called it Taj Expressway, then there was a controversy and then made it Yamuna Expressway. So this corridor, they had huge tracts of land, and they were using it to develop various things like the Formula One. They developed a sports city, they developed stadiums, they developed a lot of infrastructure around that Yamuna Expressway. And they also, like, since Delhi, this is in the outskirts of Delhi, there is a lot of housing demand. And in India, getting a housing loan is easy, and it is seen as one of the triggers for economic activity. So there is huge housing demand. So they built a big city called JP Wish Town, and thousands of home buyers were people there, even under construction projects here, like even that trend is coming to other cities and smaller towns also now. So people pay around 40-50% upfront, and they are promised delivery of houses 4-5 years later. So JP Infratech also put up this huge projects where thousands of home buyers were involved. So when this came into dirty dozen, so there was a big question, what happens to the home buyers, because they were also creditors in a way, because they have also given money, and thousands of crores of home buyer dues was also there. So then the matter went to Supreme Court, and finally it was decided that home buyers also will be given same status as banks, as financial creditors, and they will be given preference in whatever funds are refunded to the creditors. So this was a landmark case because of this complication, and it became a precedent for several other real estate cases, numerous cases, especially in Delhi NCR, National Capital Region. Thousands of home buyers, in fact it would run into even lakhs, are affected, and real estate promoters have been unscrupulous and siphoned off money and done all kinds of things. Many of these cases are still running even 10 years later. So this company went to Suraksha Realty. This is part of the, somewhere connected to the Sun Pharma Group, which is from Gujarat. Next is Amtech Auto. This is another interesting case. So like JP, the promoter father was from UP Irrigation Department. So you know this irrigation, Neer Wala Turaya, irrigation, Pasana. PWD. PWD is a very money spinning department typically in state governments. So obviously these people made money there and they got into business. And this was auto components business. In Delhi, Maruti is a big, they have a big unit in Manesar near Delhi. So the entire auto ecosystem, like in Delhi, Chennai, there is a whole auto hub built around Hyundai factory. There are small parts people. So they were supplying parts like gears, cascades, and a lot of small items to the large auto component automakers. So this was a good business, but then at some point they got into trouble and they were not able to meet their interest obligations, and they started siphoning money through related party transactions. They went to, so oftentimes when people announce we have bought this company abroad, that company abroad, as young people who are going into these areas, business and accounts and stuff like that, these professions, something should click in your mind, because these global acquisitions are often because the names are very fancy, but you don't know what exactly are there in these companies, whether there are assets enough to justify that kind of valuations and price. Oftentimes this is related to the promoter, or it is easy for the promoter to siphon off funds out of those foreign companies and use them in other ways. So this is what seemed to have happened in Amtech Auto. There were numerous related party transactions, eventually sold to Deccan Value investors, but the company itself is still has not fully revived. Alok Industries, this was a textile unit, and they had, I think they had a license for Victoria's Secret, which is a famous lingerie brand, and they used to source material from Burkina Faso, which is a South American country, and their issue was fictitious receivable. Sorry. So their issue was largely an accounting problem, and they inflated the receivables, and they were fooling the creditors. Eventually they were sold to Reliance, but there was some controversy in this sale, because initially, according to the insolvency law, the creditors had needed a 75% majority to approve this transaction. But just before this plan was approved, the law was changed into 2/3 majority, that 66% was enough. So there was some controversy around that, but Reliance anyway got it. So this is another strong hand the company went into. So this is Era Infra, is a EPC contractor. They used to be in projects of power plants and roads and all that. Not much has happened with this resolution. Almost nothing has been resolved, and it is the final. As at last checked, this approval was still pending. Jyoti Structures, this is, you might have seen these large power towers, power cables, transmission infrastructure. So if you go to the countryside, when you go around the roads, you will see these huge power towers, transmission lines. So this company puts it. This is one of the success stories. After revival, this sold to Sanghi Group, and they have been doing well. Their stock price has also recovered considerably. ABG Shipyard, this is another basket case. The company has gone into liquidation. They have siphoned off all the money. The promoter is missing, and the company hardly recovered anything. So the aftermath, we have talked about what happened after these 12 cases came in and how the central bank had put in new provisions to monitor large loans, 250 crore plus loans, or monitor more closely. So there is also not much data within the system about different groups at how much they were owing to the banking system at a group level. So data and monitoring has improved a lot, and the sell-off struggle also we talk about how various cases were put to challenge this IBC law, and right now there is a amendment which is in the Parliament which is going to allow debtor in control. So which is the kind of putting this whole IBC system back to square one, because one of the main deterrents for debtors was that the fear of losing their company. Now they are trying to tweak the system, probably because of heavy lobbying from the companies and corporate groups and lobbies like CAA and FICCI. They want to now ensure that the promoter doesn't lose the company altogether, and they can still be in control while avenues of resolution are explored. I will leave you with some numbers. So this is what the new law has done. So as many as out of the almost 9,000 cases, 1,200 cases have been resolved. So means these many companies have been redeemed. So from a hopeless end, they have now come back into the economic system. They are contributing to the economy. About 3.96 lakh crore amount has been realized out of the 12 lakh crore. So almost one third, 30%, 32% is the overall realization. So the bottom figures are also interesting because that is avoidance. Avoidance are transactions which are, so in the system there is a resolution professional who takes over the company once the company goes into insolvency. So this person goes into the books of accounts and looks for certain untoward transactions, certain undervalued transactions, fraudulent transactions. So he files a report. So this is also called PUFE transaction. This is preferential, undervalued, fraudulent, and exorbitant, and a combination of these transactions. So the resolution professional in these cases have reported, they have filed around 1,400 avoidance applications, and the amount involved is almost equal to the amount realized. This means so much of money has been taken out of the system, and the system is struggling to, because entire focus of the bankers is recovery and trying to sell, and even the adjudication infrastructure, which is the national company law tribunals, even they are focused on making the company sell ready and finding a buyer and selling it off. But nobody is looking at these fraudulent transactions which have been reported. Only in one of the cases in Amtech Auto, that is because there was a whistleblower, insider, who gave insight into what has actually happened. So this person had floated companies in the names of his drivers, maids and barbers and whoever, and there were 500 companies which were floated, went up to 15 layers, and the money was siphoned off from the loan accounts into these companies, and it was transferred into his own company. So though the names of the companies directors would be in the names of other people, the control was with the promoter himself. The agencies themselves or court couldn't find out, because there was an internal fight, somebody from inside complained, and then the enforcement director came into picture. They picked up the chartered accountants who floated those companies. They told him, "Engellam company open pannirukku ella list kodunu." So that is how the whole thing came out. About the 30,000 crore was siphoned. They have recovered around 6,000 crores. This is the only prominent case where this has happened. So this has now, though it was a major reform and so much of money has been realized, we have come to a place where further reform is needed. Like it is said, after you climb a mountain, you realize there are more mountains to climb. So I will leave you with that thought, and happy to take any questions or whatever you want to share. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Thank you. You can ask anything like Yes, please.
Hello, sir. Good morning, and I'm Logeshwari from Sri Ramakrishna Engineering College, MBA. First of all, thank you so much for being here and telling the whole scenario of what this book is. And right now, we do know what this book is all about. So my question to you is, this dirty lesson is all about greedy and governance failure and the systematic lapses what it has been in there. So I'm just curious that what is on your view, was this crisis inevitable in India's growth or was it preventable on the first basis or the furthermore?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the question. Of course, it was preventable. So there is this book called Checklist Manifesto. So bankers have their checklist. If they had followed whatever was in their checklist, if they ticked every box, like checking the end use of the loans, checking the collateral, checking what the promoter is doing, if they applied their mind, obviously things could have been prevented. Having said that, there was also some systemic issues where bankers were not seeing the whole picture, or they didn't have the full picture. Somebody in the middle level would be involved in sanctioning that loan, but he would not know who else that same borrower had borrowed with. So these things have been now addressed after this experience. So now there is a cell in the finance ministry which looks at these large loans at a more wholesome level, and control structures have been put in place. But the Tamil Subramanian Kallan Persa Kapam Persana Kallan always, so there is always a cat and mouse game, and people always figure out some ways to escape the system, and the system continues to catch up. Like I said, after so much of effort, you find that you need to do more to keep up.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So நீங்களாம் என்ன பண்ணலாம்னு இருக்கீங்க? What is, some of you can talk about your goals and dreams. Maybe I can also get some ideas what to do, because these days AI is there. Musk is threatening that there will not be any work in some time. Yeah.
So a question from my side, sir. During the presentation, we are talking about a company which has sued you for 50 crores. If it is okay with you, can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Now, basically, though they sued me for 50 crore and they managed to get a ex parte interim order. This is Electro Steel, the Kejriwal family. These people managed to get a ex parte. Ex parte means like the court gives an order without even hearing the opposite party. So this order made us withdraw all these books from the stands. We had to remove the links from Amazon and Flipkart and all those online places also. Some of the books had to be pulped because they were damaged during the return. So the whole process took us 6 months because there were hindrances during the hearing and there were strikes because of which some hearings got cancelled. So the moment we were able to put up to the judge that all these details mentioned in the book were factual and everything was backed by documentation and public domain information, then the judge was pleased to lift the restraining order, and we also presented to her how the Supreme Court itself has said in such creative works it is not correct to give ex parte interim orders, and like it has to be a speaking order, otherwise these orders act like capital punishment for this creative work. Even though this kind of clear judgment was there from the Supreme Court, oftentimes smaller lower courts continue to give these orders, leading to a lot of disruption and loss. But all said and done, we were able to convince the judge that there is no case for a restraining order. And once the restraining order was lifted, interestingly, the complainants only withdrew the case. So their whole game was to probably keep us quiet for as long as possible at the lower courts stage itself. So now after that we have come back strongly, and the book is available in many stores in larger cities. Maybe it has not reached here much.
So the case was actually on the misrepresentation of the fact, because investigative journalism is all about the public documents which has been published, you will investigate and write it. Am I right on that? You mean at least on your majority of the cases would be on the published document.
So see, there are public documents, there are secret documents. So there could be, like, whenever you make an allegation against somebody or put somebody in bad light, that person has a right to defend. So we oftentimes, as journalists, when we write about people, we give them an opportunity to respond, and most of the time it is based on documentation. See, when you are writing news, if it is already out there, everybody knows it, then it is not news. So some angle, some insight, some connection, there will be two different documents lying in two different places. Then you try to connect them both. There will be a property document, there will be a company MCA document which shows names of directors and who owns the shares and all that. So when you make these connections, it is good to give the subject a right of rebuttal. So normally this is done, and people often what they do is they don't reply when the question is asked of them, and then after the publication comes they realize, oh, this is working out to be bad, and then they go to the courts. Courts are supposed that, like I told you, the Supreme Court has clearly said in these kind of cases, especially books which are long-term projects and lot of work and effort is involved, you put an ex parte order and stop it for 6 months, then the whole momentum is lost. So you are supposed to give a speaking order. So speaking order means you have to, it is not a single line order, but you have to explain both sides and what are the contentions and why the judge thinks that there is a case to pass order one way or the other. So slowly I think this will be adopted across, but even then judges have their own mind, and often they take the call based on the case before them. So we have to live with that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Rely on some whistleblowers information.
Yeah, in some cases, like I said, in Amtech's case, there was a whistleblower who went to the court, and they had a substantial amount of documents which was filed in the court, and increasingly whistleblowers are becoming prominent, and they are an important source of information for people like that, and they need to be protected. But even governments that talk of justice, social justice, and all kinds of things, even they are intolerant when things are critical of them, and they try to attack the person, put them behind bars and for flimsy grounds. So like earlier we used to get only defamation cases. These days people are put under NIA, Narcotics Act and whatnot. So journalists, as journalists, you are prepared to defend a defamation case. You keep proof for whatever you are writing. But if you are put into fabricated cases, what defense can you have? So that is where things are now.
Good morning, sir. I am Mukila Bharati. I am from Sri Ramakrishna Engineering College, MEA. You have noted that in your book that the untold story of India's 12 biggest corporate gangster. Is there anyone left from this list?
Please keep your mic closer. You are not audible.
Sir, you mentioned in your book title that it is the untold story of the India's 12 biggest corporate gangster. Is there anyone left from this list?
Anyone? Sorry, anyone?
Anyone which is not mentioned in that book.
Anyone? No,
You only mentioned 12.
Yeah. So these dirty dozen is about these 12 only. I have mentioned some who are. There are also others which are mentioned in the separate chapter called Hindustan Leavers. So people who have left the country. So these include Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, and Jatin Mehta, and Mehul Choksi. So these people have, they didn't come under this 12, but they were also fugitive economic offenders. There is a new law which has come in, which covers people who have left the country and whose assets can be impounded and all that. So obviously, to your basic question, there are so many others who are there. Like I showed you, the number of cases which have been filed under this law alone is 8,500, and it must have increased now. This data will be like 5-6 months old, and all these are defaulters. So there is two kinds of default, like I told you. One is the actual business default, which is the case of many businessmen. They say like this is a genuine default. The businesses can face downturn, and they need protection so that more risk can be taken and more new businesses can come. But at the same time, there are these willful defaults, people who have defaulted because of other wrongful activities, frauds, diversion and all that. So those are the willful defaults which, and there is a separate framework under RBI regulation to deal with that. And there is another level of this called fraud. Willful fraud is a different kind of being. You need a different kind of evidence. For example, if you have to prove a fraud, the courts ask for end-to-end evidence. Like I mentioned to you, one person took a 1,000 crore loan and then he defaulted it, but he is gifting his wife a luxury yacht. So what courts want is, like, they want you to show, as an investigator, you have to show each transaction which led to the yacht. So oftentimes investigators are stuck because they are able to show this money started from the loan, it went to this company, it went to Australia, America, it ended up in Greenland. But they are not able to connect the two. They will be able to show the other leg also. There are two semicircles, but connecting the two and establishing a complete chain is a big task. So that is a separate area called asset tracing within the accounting, forensic accounting. So that is a huge field which you guys also can get into when you start your professional life. It is an interesting area where people move monies into tax havens, and suddenly you keep on rotating, and then at one point it disappears. So the cash is taken out and the trail goes off. So there are various methods which are used, and the law, like I said, continues to catch up, and it is a catch-up game always. Yeah.
Sir, I have another question to ask.
Yeah.
And what is the main reason, or what motivates you to write this book? Is there any reason behind this?
The main motivation is like you and me, like if we go to the bank, they throw you so many forms, and it is almost impossible to get a loan. And even I had tried some loan for a business venture. So they said they gave me hundreds of excuses, hundreds of reasons not to give a loan. But here are people who have taken loans, they have defaulted on those loans. Still the bank gives them more loans. So this is some anomaly. As a journalist or a journalist following public interest and evidence-based journalism, I thought this could be a good field, and there is a lot of interest also. See, there is public interest, and there is also viability. Like if you are writing a book, then it has to interest the publisher, it has to be bought by people, it has to work as a interesting story also. So I thought there was a good story to tell, and it will be also serving public interest. So Ore Kalla Rendu Manga Mari. So that is why I thought of writing this.
So good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
I am Prithviraj Kakarla from SRCAS.
Closer.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning, sir. I am Prithviraj Kakarla from SRCAS MBA, sir. So speaking about Dirty Dozen, it gave me an insight of how not only fugitives, how companies have led in an illegal ways of not being accountable. My question to you is, do you think Epstein files from US, in India we have scandal cases, investigators gave like Pandora Papers, Panama Papers. Do you have any kind of view on how those can act in future investigators to lead investigations?
Yeah, see, these are large data sets like Panama Papers and files which you have mentioned. So the difficulty in these large sets is that you have to match each of these small pieces of information and connect them to what has happened on ground. For example, there will be names of company, there will be names of people. And like I said, if you have to bring people to book, courts often require the entire chain to be established. So these papers like Panama papers, somebody who was a custodian in Panama, that data was leaked. So he will have only a certain part of the information. So the real work is, if real work for investigators is to establish the chain, connect the dots, and bring out the larger picture. Sometimes you end up on a completely obscure person who may not, or like I said, there is a driver. The company will lead to the driver. So who was the driver linked to? How, if the driver is linked to the politician or he is linked to some large industrialist. So that connection has to be done on ground and evidence has to be found. So that is where most of the people get stuck, and people also get away, because sometimes if there are these jurisdictions like Panama, there is British Virgin Islands, the Jersey Islands, Luxembourg, and so many other countries, Cyprus for example. These are, their main business is to hold information for these kind of offenders. So they don't give a lot of information, even though there is a large FATF framework which asks countries to maintain basic KYC, like know your customer. So I should be able to know whose money this is, whose company is this, who is the director of the company, who is the ultimate. So now Indian law has brought in this concept of ultimate beneficial owner. So if you are the ultimate beneficial owner, even though there are several layers of companies, you have to declare who is the ultimate beneficial owner of this company. So these progresses are being made based on findings of various ways money is laundered, proceeds of crime, terrorist funds, all those funds need to be identified, which is why there is a lot of push for KYC. But unfortunately, all these details common people give are misused in form of digital arrests and all these scandals these days. Whereas the larger, bigger fish whom they are targeted at, they continue to go scot-free.
Sir, and speaking about investigators, so do they hold any kind of immunity after revealing the, as you said, bigger fish? When they try to open up the bigger fish, do you think, do they get attacked or their immunity gets?
Yeah. So there is like, see, there are different levels, like increasingly if you have seen last 5 years, investigators, I don't know if as much data is available, but journalists get attacked frequently. Some of them even lost their lives, and there are organizations who have come up to protect the committee to protect journalists and journalism. And there is also, after what has happened after social media, even if you reveal something substantial based on evidence, social media allows people to kind of confuse the larger public. They will give you, oh, this person is motivated, this person has some connection, this person has received money from somebody else to defame me and stuff like that. So then people often get confused what to believe and what not to believe. This is a larger threat than the physical threat itself. Physical threat very rarely, because that would lead to other problems. People like don't go to that extent unless it is something personal, something private, which was like in case of financial crimes. Normally what happens is these kind of confusion and this kind of misinformation and disinformation through, because now everybody and his uncle has access to the social media. You can create your own video, and tomorrow you can, if I defame, if I put out something critical, somebody can come and defame me. They can say, oh, you have 4 bungalows here, you have some house here, and so that people go to that that kind of attacks are more damaging than the physical attacks. Of course, should not be there. Then there is also attacks from the establishment itself that can go to different levels. Because if establishment goes against you, they can put law, they can send the law enforcement itself after you. So it is increasingly becoming difficult for people to bring out in critical and investigate stuff. And also, also the environment is also like bit negative, because when you put out something anti-establishment, there are these IT cells which come and pounce on you. They will bring out stuff. They will say, what about this? What about that? You are writing only about this. Why have you not written about that? But as a journalist, you have limited resources. You have focused on a certain thing. You have brought out that. You are supposed to answer that. But why are you talking about then? You go and talk about Nehru did something, Indira Gandhi did something, or Kamaraj did something. So that is not the answer to what has been reported. No? So, but people get carried away by all this, and of late there is a feeling that social media has to be put under some kind of scrutiny and regulation. Hopefully something will come up.
Hello, sir. So, good morning, sir. I am Kesamurthy from SRC MBA. So, as you mentioned, there were 12 companies and 70 of them were steel companies. And you said they were in the downtrend. What caused them to, the steel industry, to go to the downtrend, and what made them to overcome that?
So, see, the demand and supply, the industry is cyclical. Sorry. Can we reduce this ACs a bit? Thank you. So, typically business cycles go through this boom and bust cycle. And what happens in these steel projects is that it is a very complex and huge capital intensive project. If you have to put up these projects, it will take 5-10 years to put up. So when the Beijing Olympics were happening, China was putting up these huge stadiums and the steel demand skyrocketed. And that prices went up substantially. So people thought this is a kind of an irreversible demand and this is a structural move and we need to put up more capacities. And that is what led a lot of people to put up those big capacities. But then when these capacities came online, that created supply overtaking the demand. Demand also fell, supply went up. Then your price crashed. This is a normal market phenomenon. That led to the down cycle. And people who had capital, who had access to capital, who had the power to get more loans, who had the connections to get loans, they survived. But people who didn't, or who were on the wrong side of the political establishment or the change of power which happened in 2014, they were left with no support. Even these 4-5 promoters, if they had given a fresh credit line, despite all that, because the guys who are buying are also not buying from their own pocket. They are also being funded by banks. But in the books, because it is a new loan, it is no longer the NPA. So that is what the earlier restructuring was doing. But even that is not correct because it is leading to the evergreening of loans. I keep on giving more loans, there is no end to it. So at some point that had to be cut off. So that is what happened with these companies.
But how did they overcome? When did the steel industry starts to boom?
So now still it is in the fresh hands, it is in the stronger hands. So now I think it is in a better place. Now steel prices have recovered. Some of the companies which are in trouble are now doing much better. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. I'm Madam Shahnaz O from 3rd BSc Microbiology from SRCW. And my question is, why is the system so soft on corporate companies but not in the small industries or farmers? And how can a journalist or a writer can be protected by exposing the harsh reality today?
Sorry, the second question I didn't get.
Like, how can a journalist or a writer... Okay. So my second question was, how can a journalist or a writer can expose the harsh reality of today's?
Yeah.
My question was not clear.
Yeah, so see, this story is well understood by a lot of people, and it is also recognized in popular culture. So the latest Shah Rukh Khan movie, I think it was Jawan, I think. Jawan also talks about the whole stories about this. How I think Vijay Sethupathi has acted in it, and he plays the role of this borrower who takes loan and runs away. So, so it is very much in the popular culture. People recognize this. That is why government is also forced to take these actions. And small borrowers also, like even they, if you look at the culture, the people take farm loans. Sorry, I talked to some of them. So they say, "Tallapudi ayiram loan, vaangunga loan abindru." So you have created this whole culture of loans as some kind of a grant. So that also needs to be addressed at some level, because these farm loans are very politically sensitive. People offer this. So there are stories of suicide, there are stories of delinquency, people getting into trouble, losing their land and all that. But at the same time, there are also these stories which encourage people to borrow in the hope of getting waived off. So that culture also needs to be addressed. So I appreciate your point that smaller borrowers, obviously the whole world is like that, though we as journalists are taught that you have to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. People are happy doing the reverse. So they will comfort the comfortable and afflict the afflicted more. So power structure is like that. People find it easy to attack poor and powerless people. That is why journalists and public interest minded people have to challenge this. We have to bring out these conflicts. We have to bring out governance issues wherever we find them. Like recently, the Indigo issue was a major governance failure which has happened in Indian corporate industry, though. So it is a failure at multiple levels. So government has given the entire market, or you cannot say government has given, but the market has evolved in a way that only one player has become very dominant. So the policy so far in the last few years has been such that we are moving towards supporting large players in each industry. So we want to make global leaders. So we want to make local players big, and so this is also leading to a lot of concentration in few hands, which is structurally not good for competition and public interest. So this issue has highlighted that problem. Hopefully people will, see, one good thing about this social media age is the government has a lot of feedback mechanism. So earlier only newspapers were playing that role. Today if any small thing happens, it gets called out on social media. And lawmakers and people in power are conscious of it because it can quickly go viral and things can get out of control. So like I talked about the evil part of social media, which is used to manipulate public opinion and interest. It is also powerful in a way that people's opinion and people's actual problems cannot be ignored. So there is a natural balance in that. So hopefully journalists and people like us can also play our parts.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, sir. I'm Madhurita T from Sri Ramakrishna Institute of Ramakrishna Institute of Technology. Sir, my question is that as you mentioned the 12 companies and their downfall, the reasons of their downfall and the mistakes what they have done. My question is, what is your one best advice or one successful mantra that all need to follow when they are developed to start a startup idea, when they develop to start and startup?
Yeah, startup is today government is also pushing. See, startup can be anything, but you need to be solving a real life problem. That is important. So these days, what is happening is mostly techies are into this startup field, and they have kind of understood what it takes to start a company, scale it up, find a venture capital fund to invest in them, find an investor, and then exit with a lot of increase in valuation. So typically in a tech environment, it is easy to scale, show that growth easily. So most people are getting into that. So they want to, whatever is there, they want to digitalize it, they want to put it in an app. So that has worked, and probably it has kind of saturated now. So everything that was appable has been apped now, I think. So now if you have to find a good startup, then you need to think of what is the problem I am solving. Like you need to figure out that. You need to ask the question, and whether that solution can be scaled to a very large population, where it makes that idea viable, and where that idea will also allow you to make a return. So most of the startups these days have focused only on growth. The moment you ask them to make profits, that becomes difficult for them. So that has become the challenge after US has raised interest rates. Initially post-COVID, interest rates were zero, so a lot of funds were available, and so much of investment were happening in a lot of startups. But last couple of years, when interest rates have gone up in US, so they are able to make that risk reward adjustment, and they are no longer looking at funding the startup to that extent. So that has kind of slowed down the whole scenario for startups. But even now, like I said, if you find a good solution which is scalable and which will also allow you to make some profit, then it can be a good startup.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, good morning, sir. I am Shakti Shushmita from SRCW. Sir, when you had an idea of doing this book, you would have went into deep research of these cases, right, sir? Which case made you think this is a unique and creative way of doing fraud?
So So, like I would say, Amtech was where the entire thing has been laid bare, because that, like I said, it was a whistleblower who, because other cases, there was always doubt about some money has gone out, some money must have gone here. Here they were able to get conclusive evidence and trace back each of those assets. So now there is a doubt that if a similar investigation was done in each of those other cases, there could be more revelations which could come out. And see, it is always visible to your naked eye that this person is living so lavishly. He has got huge houses, he's got big cars, and he's going around in private jets and yachts and stuff. So, and at the same time his company is overdue so much of amount. So these two pictures, contrasting pictures, are for everyone to see. The problem is to connect the two and connect the dots and establish that this money has gone here. So only in this Amtech case they have been able to do that. See, I think from a basic, since we are looking at a narrow area of bank loans and bank loan diversions, so the modus operandi is almost similar. So basically you will float a company, you will have your promoter control company, you will move money here, you will use the funds for, so there are 3-4 areas which can happen. The fraud itself is a much wider, it doesn't end with only bank loans. There are other kinds of investments. So basically, two factors that determine all these scams. One is greed, other is fear. People use either of the two, or sometimes a combination, to scam you of the money. So in this case, you can say it is greed. And there is digital arrest. What is happening? That is fear. They are threatening you that you will be caught by CBI, you will be caught for your son will be arrested there and stuff. So they are playing on the fear part of it. And the other part is, these are the fundamentally two factors which will be at the bottom of every fraud, every scam you will see. So that is a long answer to your question. Thank you.
On the lighter note, I would like to throw a question to you. Of course, I just got the idea there was no discussion with the author earlier. In the today's era, making the students and sometimes faculty read the book is a big difficult task, right? If you'll agree with me. So in that case, how do you think the youngsters like you, can you give us two ideas, like how you can make what will make you to read the books? Read the book written by the author, The Dirty Dozen. What should be done to make you read the book written by the author, The Dirty Dozen? Of course, so what are your ideas to take it forward? Are you going to put it in the Audible? One of my screenagers would read the book, right? Probably they might listen to Audible. Are you having any idea of putting it in the Audible? Audio book?
Yeah, probably we have to do that, because this mobile, like I was telling ma'am, that mobile is a very unfriendly medium to text. So it is very difficult to read in mobile, and these days younger people all consume most of their knowledge and content from mobile, and it is easier to consume as a video or audio, which is more suitable to these handheld devices. So there were some discussions to make a web series kind of a thing, but it is still in the process. But I also need to do a lot of work trying to sketch out those characters, and this was more kind of a fundamental record of events kind of a book, for it to become a interesting web series or some kind of a video content. Maybe more work is needed. I will also work to see that it reaches a lot of young people also. Let us say, I think this interaction itself goes a long way. I must thank you all for that, giving me this opportunity. This is the first time I'm speaking to a college in Tamil Nadu. So early this year I was in a university in Ahmedabad. So there are also a lot of people, young people. It is good to see young people interested in books. And I was speaking to a librarian there, so it was an empty library, a lot of books, but she was also saying it is difficult to get people to hook down to books in this age of information overload. But I think there is a lot of fun in reading and writing also. At the end of the day, we all have to tell stories. So wherever you go, like in your relationships, in business, in politics, so
of SRCW. Today is a special day. We have with us Sundharesha Subramanian, one of India's most respected investigative journalists and the author of the widely acclaimed book The Dirty Dozen. I read the book recently and I must say it is not just a story of financial scams. It's a mirror to the deep cracks that appeared in India's post